So last week we talked about options, call options and put options, how to buy them, how to write them, and we kept it with respect to the stocks just so that we could make it more interesting. Now this week we're going to extend that to currencies, and we will have a very specific example, a variation of it. I'll have it on the quiz for this week. And so this basically will show how to hedge with derivatives, options in specific. And like I said, it's a step-by-step process, and I'm hoping that this video is going to help you understand the concept of hedging, as well as to help you with the quiz for this week. So let's start with a simple example. We are talking about a car dealership in the US, who is importing cars, let's just say from Europe. And what we're going to do is we're going to order the cars, say from Germany, BMWs, although now the BMWs and Mercedes seem to be produced in the US, but for the sake of this example, we are going to import them directly from Germany. So the currency that we need to buy these cars is euros. So I'm just going to use a spreadsheet just to make things a little bit more easier with respect to the hedging. So let's say that we're going to be importing, a lot of cars, and all in all, we're going to owe about 2 million euros. Right. So the idea is that we want to make sure that we have a position, an exposure to currency, and therefore we need to hedge this exposure. So what we mean by an exposure is we are owing 2 million euros to buy these cars and to import them from Europe. Which means that after we bring the cars here to the US, we have probably X number of months to sell them. And then after we sell the cars, we are going to have to pay the 2 million euros in total to the manufacturer in Germany. But our complication is that we're going to be selling the cars in US dollars in the US. So let's just do a simple calculation with respect to, let me just go back to the CNBC and see what the euro US dollar is right now. Let's look at, say, foreign exchange rates right here. It's it's right there. It's 1.0603, and that's today, right? So if the foreign exchange rate of US dollar to the euro is 1.0603, then as of today, I'm going to owe this many US dollars. So, this is actually quite simple then. What I would do is, let's just say that I will order, say, 20 cars, right? So this is the total that I owe. These are the number of cars. So number of cars, and just make them, put them in the center. So if we are, let's just say that we're going to be importing 20 cars, and cost per car is this divided by 20, and that's about $100,000. So, and again, I'm sorry, it's 100,000 euros. So at that exchange rate, we're going to be having 20 cars. And if we actually sell these cars in US dollars, we're going to be selling them for $106,030. So now the problem, the exposure, the risk exposure, is that we are selling the cars now for the next, say, 3 months. But after we're done selling the cars, we are going to be converting those dollars that we collected selling the cars and to euros, and then paying the 2 million euros. However, let's just say this is today. And then in 3 months, so let's just plus 3 months, if the exchange rate changes to say 110, see, this is how much we collected selling the cars. So at that exchange rate, 1.1, right? The amount of euros that we are going to have, converting those dollars that we collected at the new exchange rate, will be this much. And notice that it is actually less than the 2 million euros. So the exchange rate going up is going to affect us terribly, and we're going to actually lose a little over 70,000 euros. So how do we fix this? But again, let me rephrase the risk. This is what we refer to as the foreign exchange exposure. We owe, in fact, let me just add a column and just write here, we owe the euro 2 million. This is how much exactly we owe. Right? Let's make this a little bit of a different color. That's how much we owe, and that doesn't change. We bring 20 cars from Europe, about 100,000 euros each car, and we're going to be owing 2 million euros for these cars. Now, as of today, when we're getting into this arrangement, the exchange rate is 1.0603, which means if I were to convert how much I owe in euros to how many dollars that I need to collect selling these cars, because I need to put a price sticker on these cars in US dollars, it would actually seem like if I were to sell each car at $106,030 each, I should be able to pay the euro. I mean, obviously, the plus the profit. So having done that, now the problem is I still owe the 2 million, but in 3 months, if the exchange rate changes to 110, what will happen is the amount of dollars that I collected, which is $2,120,000, won't be enough to cover my 2 million euro debt that I have to owe, that I have to pay in 3 months. I mean, obviously, this could work in my favor as well. I mean, if it goes to, say, 105, what would happen is then I would have more euros than I would need, and I would have about a $19,000 excess, which is good. But notice this is a speculative position. I'm a car dealership. I'm not in it to make money with the fluctuations in the exchange rates. I'm not in it to lose money with it. I'm not in it to make money with it. My purpose literally is to sell these cars and make a profit. I'm a car dealership. So this is where you come in as a finance person. Your job is to make sure that this exchange rate is fixed. So one thing that we did in class in previous weeks, if you remember, we actually worked on futures. We preemptively bought the euros 3 months ahead of time, which worked nice. But this time, what we want to do is we want to do an options example. So we're going to start with a 2 million euro debt that we need to pay in 3 months. And then we're going to have a scenario analysis in which we will talk about how to hedge this risk. So let's start with that. So let's go to the next sheet. What we owe is going to be the euro, the 2 million, right? And let's make the whole column into a, into a comma delimited. And what we owe does not change. And this is in euros. In fact, maybe I should just do it like this. Now, let's have a exchange rate right here. And this exchange rate is going to be our scenario, right? So what we owe right here does not change. So I'm going to carry that forward. And remember, what we're doing now is a scenario analysis of what happens to our position given different exchange rates. So at this point, remember again what we're doing. We owe 2 million euros, and today's exchange rate is 1.06, which means that if we were to sell each car at $106,000 and collect $2,120,000, we should be all set. But we don't know what the exchange rate will be in 3 months, and therefore, when we actually end up selling the car at $2,120,000, we don't know if that amount of dollars will be enough to buy 2 million euros. So we want to know what changes as this dollar-euro exchange rate changes, right? So let's start with 105, right? And let's say that that's today. In fact, let's be more realistic. We started out with 1.06. So what we owe now in US dollars, right? Basically looking at what we owe in euros corresponds to in dollars, right? So this would mean, this would mean this many dollars. So then let's go up about 2, like that. And then let's make them look a little bit nicer. And then let's go down 2 basis points, like that. And then given that, how much what we owe changes. So notice that as the exchange rate actually gets lower, what we owe in euros does not change, but what that euro debt corresponds to in US dollars changes. And anything above and beyond this point is going to cost us, right? So what does that mean? That means, remember, when we get into this agreement, we are going to be selling these cars with a price tag on them. And as of today, we use this exchange rate to write these price tags on each car. So we're hoping to sell each car at $106,000, which means if the exchange rate goes up during this time, above and beyond what it is today, we are going to have a loss, right? So this is our current situation, right? Meaning anything above and beyond this, upside is going to be our loss. So at this point, we are going to be at a 0 profit loss. And at the exchange rate of, and let's make this centered as well, and the exchange rate of 1.08, this minus this will be our loss. So since this is going to be our loss, let's make it negative, and that's going to be our loss. The second one will be, again, this will be our base minus the new cost in US dollars, and then the next one, this minus the new cost, and then this minus the new cost. So notice how our loss increases significantly as the exchange rate increases. Now, obviously, we would have a profit if the exchange rate goes down. So if this goes down to 104, we have a profit. If it goes to 102, we have more profit. If it goes to this, we have more profit. If it goes to below 1, we have it. We have more profit. And if it goes down to more below 1, then we have more profit. So as the exchange rate changes, we could have a profit and we could have a loss. But again, we are a car dealership, and we are not in this to speculate with the foreign exchange rates. We want to buy cars and put our markup, sell them, and make a profit. We're a sales operation, and therefore we don't want to take this risk. So we'll hire a finance person to help us eliminate this risk. So in this case, once we realize that this is our position, let me actually make it so that this is our, well, let's just call this foreign exposure position. Now we need to hedge this, right? So what does hedging mean? Well, the hedging means that for this specific risk that I have, as the exchange rate goes up, I lose money. So then I need a second position right here, which I'm going to call a hedge position or hedging position. Right? And this actually is supposed to make me money as the exchange rate goes up. And ideally, we want to have equal amount of profit with this new position that would offset the amount of losses that I have. And again, remember, we could have done this with futures, but with futures, you also give up any sort of possibility of the profit. And which will become clear in a few minutes, with an options, while we pay a premium, we actually leave the top side open, which means that while we're hedging ourselves, we still leave the door open for a potential profit. So we're being a bit greedy with the option. But anyway, so the idea is that we need now a financial instrument that would make us money as the exchange rate goes up. And this has to be reasonable, meaning we can't just say, let's buy euros 2 million. If I had 2 million euros to begin with, I wouldn't have an exposure. I would buy the cars paid in advance, which simply means that I wouldn't have an exposure to begin with. But since we don't have it, we just need a product that would actually make us money with a significant leverage. So here it is. There is an ETF called FXE, and we have quite a few of those by Invesco. There's FXA, FXY, FXI, and so on and so forth. And this actually is an ETF for dollar to the euro. It's an index, so the price that you see is actually not the actual price of the euro in dollars, meaning it's not an exchange rate per se, but it is close enough that as an index we could use it for our purposes. So notice that this current price for this is 97.88. So this is an ETF. For one share of the ETF, we pay $97.88 and we get 100 euros. So notice how this is exactly not the price of euros per se, but it is an indexed ETF. So with a 97.88, let's start with that. Right? So we are going to be doing an FXE, and this is, remember, this is today. The exchange rate is 97. Well, the index ETF price is 97.88. And remember, this is the correct price. Like literally, this is what you would pay to buy this ETF if you had a brokerage account and if you wanted to buy the FXE as an ETF. However, we don't want to buy the ETF because we literally want leverage. We want to be generating a position that creates us a profit, that makes us profit as the exchange rate goes up. So notice under the menu, we have options. And last week, we talked about the call options and the put options. And remember that the call option gives you, the buyer of the option, the right to buy an underlying asset. In this case, the FXE is the underlying asset. So first of all, notice we have different maturities. So we are looking for 3 months out because that was our original example right here, 3 months out. And so we're in October, November, December, January. So we are looking at January of next year. So, and notice how we have different strike prices. And as the strike prices go up, the the price gets cheaper. But obviously, it also makes our profit less. So at this point, I think my intention is not to speculate with this because remember, I'm combining now two positions to make sure that this loss that I would have can be covered with a potential profit from a from an alternative financial product. So the idea is that with a call option that I buy, as the exchange rate goes up, or as the price of FXE, which is indexed to the dollar euro exchange rate, goes up, I need to make a profit. So something that's closest to the current exchange rate, current price, would actually do me fine. So I'm going to go with 98, right? So instead of the 97.88, I'm just going to say 98. Now, obviously, we want this to go up by one. Oops, sorry. We want this to go up by one, and then like that. And then remember, this is today. And then we want this to go down by one. So at this point, the argument is that if we buy this, we actually have to pay a premium. But I won't be talking about the premium today. I will talk about that premium on Friday and the actual details of how this is set up and how much it costs and how many contracts we need. Today's concept is to understand the concept of hedging when you have an exposure, a foreign exposure, and how you actually create a hedging position to hedge for it. Meaning we have a position that generates us a loss if the exchange rate goes up. And what we're doing is we are trying to buy a secondary financial position, a security position that would make us profit as the exchange rate goes up. And hopefully the amount of profit that we make on one will be equal to offset the loss that we generate with the other one. So no matter what happens, we are actually not making any profit or a loss. Well, in this case, I'm kind of hoping that we'll have a profit. But anyway, so with the hedge position, for now, we are going to ignore any premiums that we pay. That's Friday. So for today, we will just assume that we are buying the call for this position. So I'm just going to write it right here, buying a, well, not a, but buying call options, right? Which means that if we're buying the profit, if we're buying a call option at the strike price of 98, which means we have a right to buy at $98 per share of the FXE, which is 100 euros. Again, if we have a call option at 98 strike, that means we have a right to buy the FXE, which is equal to 100 euros, and FXE is an ETF, and we have a right to buy FXE at 98. So currently our profit with this is 0. And as the exchange rate or the price of FXE goes up, we actually make money. And remember, each contract is 100 shares. So at this point, if the exchange rate or the price of FXE goes up by 1, then we go 99 minus the 98, and that's a $1 profit. Now, again, remember, this is 100 shares. So notice what I'm doing right here. I just took 99 minus 98 and multiplied it by 100 shares. Each option contract is 100 shares of FXE. Again, remember, the FXE is actually 100 euros. And that's how many euros of a profit that we would have. So again, what did I do? we have a right to buy. If we buy a call option with a strike price of 98, we have a right to buy the FXE at $98 per share, and the FXE itself as an ETF is equal to one share of FXE is equal to 100 euros. So since each call option is 100 shares of FXE, and since each FXE is 100 euros, if the exchange rate and the price of FXE goes up by 1, then my profit would be 99 minus the 98 times 100 shares, because one contract call option is 100 shares, times 100 euros, because one FXE is 100 euros, and that gives you 10,000 euros. Now notice, however, that we actually, as the price go up, but this is not a 100% match. Like I said, we're going to do that, precision on Friday. But just so you understand how this works for today. So with 108, we actually had a $40,000 of a loss. So we went from 106 to 108, and we have a $40,000 of a loss. We went from 98 to 99, and we have a $10,000 profit, right? So maybe we will need more than one contract, or however many contracts we will get. So let's do the same with this, minus the 98 times 100 times 100, and that actually gives you 20,000. And then we do the same, 101 minus 98 times 100 times 100. Then again, 102 minus 98 times 100 times 100. So notice again what we mean by a hedge position, and I'm going to call this hedged position, is literally having both positions at the same time. So we need to combine the two positions so that we should have a minimum amount of exposure, right? So obviously for today, we do not have exact increment on the total side and on the hedging side. The hedge position with respect to the profit loss of a hedged position means that we have the foreign exposure position plus the hedging position, and when you combine the two, it becomes a hedged position. And therefore, with the hedging position of this specific FXE one contract call option, when we actually bought it, it actually generates us a profit as the exchange rate goes up, whereas our original position increases our loss along with the exchange rate. So when you combine the two, the loss is now a little bit offset by the call option that we bought. Now, obviously, our intent is to eliminate that loss completely, and therefore we may need to buy more options. Also, just to show you, as the exchange rate goes down, we actually have a loss on a call option. See, because it's a call option, we don't incur a loss. It's an option. We can walk away from it. And therefore, we simply do not exercise the option. And the option price will eventually diminish. And we are going to have the loss of the premiums that we pay for this. However, the idea is that as the exchange rate goes down, with an option, our profit and loss will be simply zero. So this is the difference between the futures and the option. With futures, we do not pay a premium. It's basically buying the euros ahead of time, which is ideal in a lot of cases. but our objective for this week is to learn how to hedge with options. The idea is that with options or with futures, you would actually have a profit with the hedging position as the exchange rate goes up, and you would have a loss as the exchange rate goes down. So you would have neither profit nor loss no matter what happens. You are literally buying the euros ahead of time. With an option, however, you have to pay the premium, so it costs you an additional money to buy the option. However, you have a right to walk away from it, which means if the exchange rate goes in our favor, goes down, and we have a profit, we simply do not have to exercise the option, and therefore we not only eliminated the loss, offset the loss, but we actually left the profit possibility open. So that's it for today. And on Friday, we're going to make this a little bit more precise, and then I'll go through the quiz for this week. And it will be in Japanese yen, and it will be another FXY, but it is pretty much exactly what we are going through with this assignment or with this exercise. I'm available to answer any questions, and I'm available to meet with you via Zoom. So please let me know how I can help. And well, thank you. Thank you for working with me. Bye now.